All right, I think that made it work. I had to my mic. I had to unplug it and plug it back in. When in doubt, I did. That's exactly what happened. Pulled it, and then there we go. Also using interpretive dance. We're not far from that sometimes. Yeah, it was not the button not pushed situation. It was simply playing dumb, as it does. And I'm too tired for anything more complicated as an issue. So that was nice. And where's this guy? There you go. That mic's, and they're good. Hi. I've had no coffee, although, I had some last night on my drive, but that was early on, and that was that. Justice has been beating the right leg. Oh, it's a fun day today. Oh, boy. Man, and boy, are the right wing pissed about this. Trump is not supposed to experience consequences. You know what I mean? It's just not what's done. And therefore, we've got to... Well, here, let me... should I show you? Here it is. Look at the trends. Impeachment. Impeach Joe Biden. Money laundering. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. $2 billion. Hump Day. Tommy Tuberville. Trump family. Maggie. Weinstein. The DOJ. George Santos. We'll get to that. Oh, boy. Oh, it's so nice. And Brian Stelter. All right. Bringing up the rear there, Brian. Impeachment, obviously, I guess they're going Lindsey Graham on Trump. I think we could convict Donald Trump of kidnapping Lindbergh's baby. I question the whole process. All right, yeah. Maybe House GOP can have George Santos introduce the articles of impeachment against Hunter Biden. Right. George Santos is in federal custody as feds unseal 13-count indictment. Oh, it's so good. Dear GOP, if you have a little thing called evidence on the Biden family about illegal activities, you have to go to a court and file papers like these. We realize you guys talk out of your ass a lot about impeachment, money laundering, Hunter's laptop. This is how we roll. There it is. We'll get to that. Well, I'm holding the Santos stuff till later. Impeach Joe Biden for weaponizing the government against Donald Trump. The GOP oversight reveals Biden family received over $1 million in payments from a Romanian national in pay-to-play influence peddling scheme when Joe Biden was VP. Impeach Joe Biden. Yeah, no. That's not what they revealed at all. Hold on, I gotta put my headphones in. And by the way, hour 2, Philip Bittner will be joining us. There is a lot going on in Ukraine right now while this business is occurring. Let me flip this over so I'm able to hear this. I think this is the old Comer stuff.
Investigators have uncovered regarding the transfer of money from foreign entities to the Biden family. Many of the
By the way, like Hunter Biden worked internationally. Meanwhile, Jared Kushner runs off with $2 billion. But the idea that money was transferred to a guy who openly works internationally by foreign entities. Good fucking God. Find me a member of the Republican House that has not received money from foreign entities. You want to go through the NRA money that Russia was funneling to people?
wire payments occurred while Joe Biden was vice president.
Yes, Hunter Biden was working for Burisma and those companies during the time Joe Biden was vice president. Duh.
And leading the United States efforts in these countries. First instance, while Vice President Biden was lecturing Romania on anti-corruption policies, in reality he was a walking billboard for his son and family to collect money. Hunter Biden and his associates capitalized on a lucrative
And his associates? You mean the business he was a part of?
financial relationship with a Romanian national who was under investigation for and later convicted of corruption in Romania. The Bidens received over $1 million for
$1 million. I mean, who wouldn't sell out their entire country for $1 million smackaroos? I mean, you finally get to buy that that extra shiny shed roof on your house in Delaware. Whatever
the deal. And 16 of the 17 payments to their associates' account that funneled the
to their associates' account.
Biden's money occurred while Joe Biden was vice president.
Because Hunter Biden had a job working with these. That person was investing through Rosemont Seneca. Who gives a shit? Oh, God. Anyways, this James Comer shows the Biden family business is corruption. Now, no, they don't. Raise your hand if you want Republicans to impeach Joe Biden now. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, keep your hand up till your wrist goes numb. According to the Constitution, Congress can impeach Joe Biden and also rid ourselves from the inept Kamala Harris. Yeah, What is this? Congress may, by law, provide for the case for removal, death, resignation, inability, both president and the vice president declaring. Yes, congratulations. You've underlined a congressionally existent thing. And by the way, Trump should have been removed from office. He was impeached. Impeached for it. Yeah, this is just gonna. Okay, I say the Biden family is corrupt. I don't. But this is because they're busting Santos and Trump has to pay $5 million. Everybody's mad. All the idiots tweeting impeach Joe Biden are so fucking stupid. First of all, what? Yeah. And then Kamala Harris becomes the president after this, right? And this woman, Bridget Gabriel, is the one who keeps going off on like how manly and talented Trump is. It's an illness. Yeah, it's try harder. Biden meeting with McCarthy on debt limit today. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So money laundering. We'll go to that one. I think that's to do with, that guy. Santos arrested 13 cases, including 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, and 2 counts of making material false statements to the U.S. House. Oh, it's so good. And McCarthy's standing with him because they need every vote they can get. By the way, they're going to let him keep his seat until he is actually indicted, or until he's actually convicted. Getting courthouse is in custody in a federal courthouse. He's charged with 7 counts of wire fraud. Certainly, he's going to post bail, right? Immediately. Yeah. So let's see. Breaking Feds Congressman George Santos charged. Here it is. Let's shall we look at it? Oh boy. Congressman George Santos charged with fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, false statements. Santos allegedly, but that's the news thing. I want to see the indictment paperwork. There it is. That's the case. USA versus DeVolder Santos, because he goes by multiple names. Defendant George Anthony DeVolder Santos, also known as George Santos. Wire fraud, fraudulent political contribution solicitation scheme, criminal forfeiture allegation, unlawful monetary transactions over $10,000, criminal forfeiture allegation, theft of public money, criminal forfeiture allegation, wire fraud, fraudulent application for and receipt of unemployment benefits, criminal forfeiture allegation, false statements, House disclosure reports, and false statements on House disclosure report. Oh dear. Oh, that's good. There you go. This is the paperwork. Introduction to all counts. At all times relevant to this indictment, unless otherwise indicated. The defendant, George Anthony DeVolder Santos, Queen of Sheba, also a PhD, also known as George, it's not my real name, Santos, was a resident of Queens and Suffolk counties. During the 2020 and 2022 election cycles, DeVolder Santos campaigned as a candidate for the United States House of Representatives, the House, on or about November 8, 2022. DeVolder Santos was elected the United States Representative of New York's 3rd Congressional District, which covered parts of Queens and Nassau counties in the Eastern District of New York. DeVolder Santos was sworn into office on the 7th. The DeVolder Organization, LLC, was a Florida limited liability company formed on or about May 11, 2021, with its principal place of business in... We got to look at the rest of it. I need to have the whole thing. Luckily, give me 1 second. As exhausted as I am, one of the things I was able to do was, and I got to wait for this program to open before it will get to it, is give my quick notes. Jump on over to here and open this up and click on that. There we go. And we'll go to here and look who found the entire indictment. Let's see, doing this part, that, yeah. In document form. All 20 pages of it in glorious relief, and we'll pump it up. Let's say 150%. Should that do it? That 2%. Oh, all right. Oh, sorry, it takes too long. Slow poke and click. There it is. All right. So, the DeVolder Organization, see what we got there? All right. Was a Florida LLC, which is interesting in and of itself. You're running in New York. Why don't you form a New York LLC? Whatever. With its principal place of business in Melbourne, Florida, the defendant, George Anthony DeVolder Santos, in Melbourne, Florida, was the sole beneficial owner of it and the only person involved. Company number one, an entity, the identity of which is known to the grand jury, was a Florida LLC formed on November 1st, 2021. Principal place of business in Merritt Island, Florida, outside of Melbourne. At the time, the organization, Company One, had two authorized managers, of which one was the DeVolder Organization, LLC. Person one, an individual whose identity is known to the grand jury, was a political consultant operating in Queens County and surrounding areas, including areas within the Eastern District of New York. In and about September, in October, at the direction of the defendant, George Anthony DeVolder Santos, person one acted on behalf of Company One. Investment firm number one, an entity of which is known to the grand jury, was a Nevada corporation with its principal place of business in Melbourne, Florida. Investment firm number one was purportedly engaged in retail sales of securities products. In and about and between and under and over and slappity-doo. January 2020 to March 31st, 2021, the defendant, George Anthony DeVolder Santos, was employed by investment firm one as a regional director. In that capacity, I received an annual salary of approximately $120,000, which was deposited into a personal bank account maintained by DeVolder Santos in regular intervals beginning on about February 3rd, 2020. Devised and executed a scheme to defraud supporters of his candidacy for the House to obtain money from them by fraudulently inducing supporters to contribute funds to Company One under the false pretense that the money would be used to support DeVolder Santos' candidacy, and then actually spending thousands of dollars of the solicited funds on personal expenses, including luxury designer clothing and credit card payments. DeVolder Santos communicated and directed Person One to communicate to those supporters false information about Company One, including that Company One was a Section 501c4 social welfare organization and an independent expenditure committee. It's not my little bullshit investment firm with no employees that's just me. It's my own personal PAC. It's a SPAC. In addition, as explained below, Company One was neither a Section 501c4 or an independent expenditure committee, and upon receipt of contributions by those supporters to Company One, DeVolder Santos converted most of those funds to his own personal benefit. The Federal Election Campaign Act of 71, that is why it's illegal, expressly prohibits it. Independent expenditure only committee or super PAC was a type of political committee that you can't have contact with while you're campaigning. Yeah, if you have a legit campaign, and he did know, and blah blah blah. So he just set up a slush fund PAC and just took the money from it and paid his bills. Defendant's fraud scheme is part of the scheme of fraud. It's part of it because there's a lot more to it, I suppose. The defendant, George Anthony DeVolder Santos, hereto referred as Mr. Porgy, directed Person One to solicit contributions to Company One from prospective contributors via emails, text messages, and telephone calls. In furtherance of those efforts, DeVolder Santos, Porgy, arranged the creation of an email address associated with Company One for Person One, provided Person One with the names and contact information of prospective contributors, and conveyed false information to Person One about the nature of Company One. So basically they would just bullshit people, and he told them a lie, and they passed that lie on, and they rolled on him because they didn't want to go to jail for lying. And by the way, this might be, we don't know for sure. This might be that person on Twitter who just yesterday said that they were talking to the feds about Santos and were let's see. That email falsely stated, inter alia, that company number one was attempting to raise another $700,000 to reach our goal of $1.5 million to invest in the DeVolder Santos's race to compete with the money independently raised for DeVolder Santos's opponent. Thereafter, on or about that, again acting at the direction of DeVolder Santos and on behalf of Company One, sent the contributor number one another email which falsely stated that a contribution from contributor one would be spent, at least in part, to get our advertising up on TV. Right. So he's just basically sending fake campaign emails to people and then directing the firms that they the funds that they get to this firm under the pretense that it's a super PAC that he's not in contact with, and then just on or about. And then Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act was enacted. In light of the ongoing health crisis related to the novel coronavirus, CARES Act allocated additional unemployment benefits for eligible individuals. Specifically, so he pulled a Marjorie Taylor Greene. On or about June 17, 2020, the defendant applied to receive unemployment insurance benefits through New York State Department of Labor. In this application, DeVolder Santos falsely claimed to have been unemployed since the week of March 22nd, 2020, beginning on or about June 19th, continuing through that, certified as continuing eligibility for unemployment benefits on a weekly basis, in each case falsely attesting inter alia that he was unemployed, available to take on new work, and eligible for benefits. In truth and fact, however, it was a regional director of the investment firm, so he was still paying himself with these funds while running for office or planning to run for office. He was still writing himself a check from this business or whatever, whilst he was still making money through it or distributing money through it. The defendant received $24,744 in unemployment insurance benefits, which were deposited into his bank account. Okay. Yeah, basically, that's sort of more run-of-the-mill stuff. Anyways, 13-count indictment. Yahoo! And P.S., if I may, this is one of my favorite ongoing parts of this, and this has to do with that first thing that we saw just moments ago, where people were clamoring to indict, impeach, indict, impeach Joe Biden. The problem that they have is that other than kind of like pretend naughty language about influence peddling and blah, 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 they have no direct evidence. As a matter of fact, I would argue they have no indirect evidence. They just have a lot of like finger wagging, and it's obvious to anybody when it absolutely is not. As a matter of fact, if pressed, I think most of them would have to admit that what they see is the exact opposite of influence peddling, because in reality, every one of these situations where supposedly Biden took money to favor one side or the other, in office, he's doing the exact opposite. If the mayor of Moscow's wife was funneling Russian money to Hunter Biden to get favorable conditions for Russia, they're sure as shit not getting it. And if the Chinese, again, funneled money through Hunter Biden to Joe Biden in an attempt to buy his influence and soften the sanctions, or to lower, to slow his role on reshoring factories or getting companies out of China, that didn't work at all. It isn't working. It had no hope of working. But I guess hope springs eternal. But ultimately, again, China apparently, according to James Comer, is paying for the abuse. Let's see. Political reporting is that they have yet to deliver the goods and are under pressure to do so at the risk of their probe losing steam and legitimacy. Yeah, it's Durham Part 2. There's no there. The Oversight Committee's chair pivotal moment comes in the form of a long-planned press conference on his panel's investigation to President Joe Biden. His son Biden is already facing federal investigation and other family members. Comer's move follows weeks of doubt, including from some within his own party, and the Kentucky Republican can back up his promises to find a smoking gun that would tie the president to private affairs of his relatives. No such link has publicly emerged, and unless Comer's yet to be released findings contain that hard proof, his maneuver is at serious risk of backfiring just as he's ramping up efforts to get more buy-in for his probe. This comes as CNN reports that Comer has released a memo alleging members of Biden's family, including his son Hunter, received payments from foreign entities in Romania and China, but stops considerably short of finding any proof of criminal wrongdoing. The foreign payments raised questions about Hunter Biden's business activities while his father was vice president, but the committee does not suggest any illegality about the payments from foreign sources. The bank records by themselves also do not indicate the purpose of the payments that were made, reported Annie Grayer, Elena Train, Jeremy Herb, and Sarah Murray. Comer has suggested that Biden may have been improperly influenced by the financial dealings, particularly by his family's foreign business partners, but the latest report does not show any payments made directly to Joe Biden, either as vice president or after leaving office. In response to the new findings put forward by GOP oversight, White House assistant Ian Sams tweeted, "Seriously, this was debunked literally 4 years ago." Yeah, it's just lame. It's all weak sauce. But we'll get to that as well. George Santos is a day for you. Just what you wanted, you goofy fool. 13-page indictment. All right. Oh, wait. Is that his, that can't be his. Is that his mugshot already? That's too early. That's an old mugshot. He's already pled guilty to the theft charges in Brazil, and I guess he was hoping to avoid being extradited. Let's see, as George Santos being indicted for money laundering, GOP tries to claim Hunter Biden and Joe Biden are guilty of money laundering. Once again, they get Byron Donalds to carry water for them like he did during Kevin McCarthy's fraud speaker. Okay, we'll see what he says. This is on C-SPAN.
Here's an example of what I mean. You have
let's go.
Rosemont Seneca Partners.
Yes, a legit business entity. And again, if you're going to invest in Burisma, you want to do it after Rosemont Seneca was working there.
Rosemont Seneca Advisors. Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners. RSP Holdings.
Hold on. Shall we go through all the versions of Trump's media organizations? The Trump organization has something like 1,500 LLCs.
RSTP2 Alpha. RSTP2 Bravo. Rosemont Seneca Thornton. Rosemont Seneca Bohai. I want to make sure I pronounce it right. Bohai. Bohai. And the list goes on and on. Cycling through this many companies serves no legitimate purpose. Here's an example of what I mean.
Huh? Hold on one second. Let's see. Here you go. Let me bring this over here. The Trump Organization. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger for you as well. Boop, boop, beep, boop, 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 boop. Okay. The Trump Organization is a group of about 500 business entities, of which Donald Trump is the sole or principal owner. Around 250 of these entities use the Trump name. The organization was founded in 1927 by Donald Trump's paternal grandmother, Elizabeth Christ Trump, and his father, Fred Trump, as E. Trump and Son. Edward Fred, I guess. Donald Trump began leading it in 1971, renamed it around 1973, handed off his leadership to his children in 2016. You're right. When president, there you go. Blah, blah, blah. History, founding and history. There's civil rights lawsuit, Manhattan developments, and more. Financing. They got a bunch of money because they were handing out money during the Reagan years. And there's his father and criminal and civil charges. 2021, they were found guilty of a 15-year scheme to defraud the government. And then I'm trying to find, selected completed properties. There's Trump Tower, Trump World Tower in Midtown Manhattan, at the United Nations. The AXA Financial Center in Manhattan, 555 California Street in San Francisco, which is the one he's losing $1 million a month on in extra interest that he shouldn't have to be paying. Trump's stake in the two buildings is estimated worth $850 million as of 2013. That's definitely gone down. The Trump building at 40 Wall Street, bought and renovated for $1 million in 1995. Good Lord. The idea that you could buy a Wall Street building for $1 million, the pre-tax non-operating income at the buildings of 2011 was $20.89 million and is valued between $350 million and $400 million. Huh? The pre-tax operating net income at the building as of 2011 was $20 million. And it's valued between $350 and $400 million, according to the Department. Trump took out a $160 million mortgage attached to the property with an interest rate of 5.71 to use for other investments. Forbes valued the property at $260 million in 2006. In 95, it was $1 million. Good Lord. Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago. The entire project is valued at $1.2 billion. Trump has a $112 million stake in it. That's the one thing I don't think people recognize about the Trump Tower in Chicago, is that even though it's got his name on it, he's the smallest partner in the whole fucking building. In a $1 billion building, he's the smallest partner. Trump International Hotel Las Vegas, which is shiny and ridiculous. Let's see. A joint development with fellow Forbes members Phil Ruffin, who's the key partner, Jack Kushner, who's a minority partner. In 2006, Trump's stake was estimated at $162 million. Trump International Las Vegas was described as a 50-50 partnership between Donald Sr. and Ruffin, with Eric as the primary manager for the Trump Organization. That's not the case at all. Trump International Hotel and Tower in New York. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Trump Park Avenue, 657th Street, Mar-a-Lago, Seven Springs, a Bedford, New York mansion, which is apparently he's just fighting. Yeah, it's just basically abandoned right now. And his Beverly Hills house. He has a 5-bedroom house purchased by Trump in 2007 for $7 million in value between 8.5 and 10 as of 2013. Sold the property in June 2019 off market for 13.5. To a shady dealer, no doubt. The Central Park Carousel, blah blah blah. Yeah. Anyways, he's got whatever, a few dozen properties that he's partners in, and almost every single one of them has a multiple LLCs that are dealing with the each one of these properties that he's involved in has its own separate Trump Organization story. So but just for the record, Byron Donalds is talking out of his ass. And that ass would be George Santos, apparently. And by the way, hi, chat room. How are you guys? A building value 30 years ago at $1 million worth 250, 300 million days, the real story that no one talks about. Yeah, that's that. I would put that entirely in foreign influence in the hold on, I remembered over in the real estate market in New York and other big cities, because many of those folks. Let's see, because Philip's going to join us at the top of the hour. Okay, he's open and ready to go. I've got to squeeze this out. Hold on. Put this in here. And there you go. And then I've got to turn on my camera so you can see me. There we go. And then we'll take this guy. Okay. Hopefully that works. Now, gig was amazing and super fun. Yeah, it was a lot. It was good. It's really good. The next one's going to be crazy. I just know it. So much to be happy about on the justice front. I agree. And even still, there's still people who are there's still people who are going to go, it's not moving fast enough. Trust me, the trickle is what drives them crazy. I'm very excited. Okay, so let's go back to these. Kevin McCarthy, because he's saying debt ceiling garbage, blah, blah, blah. Hold on, what? Italy may withdraw from China's Belt and Road Economic Pact. Bloomberg, Italian Prime Minister George Meloni assured Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives Kevin McCarthy during a meeting in Rome that her government is likely to withdraw from One Belt, One Road program. Yeah, not surprising. Said he's withholding his judgment and won't urge Santos to resign until he sees more of the investigation and what plays out in court. Yeah, because he's got a razor-thin margin, and they've got 3 other people who are staring down the barrel of indictment too. He literally can't afford to be moral right now. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy blocks Rep Rashida Tlaib from hosting anti-Israel event, or maybe against the bad things that Israel does, not against that he is canceling an event scheduled for Wednesday at the Capitol Visitor Center that would have criticized the founding of Israel. That would have really the founding of it, not the actions of the current government, the existence of it. Is that where Rashida Tlaib is going? I have my doubts. President Biden will take his case for raising the debt ceiling without conditions to Valhalla, New York today. President is set to reconvene with Kevin McCarthy and congressional leaders on Friday. So it does keep the title that he maintained fraud. Okay, the debt ceiling stuff aims to take. Yeah, we'll look at Biden's remarks. Let's see. His pushback, that video, his pushback. I have to find it. It was just spectacular. This is
that my colleagues and I will be saying things to you after this is all over. But in the meantime, just wanted to welcome you, let you know what we're doing. We're not going to take any questions now. We're going to get started. We're going to solve all the world's problems. Okay, Mr. President. Folks, welcome. I'm sure that my colleagues and I will be saying things to you after this is all over.
Yeah, I'm sure my colleagues will be saying things after this is all over. And it means Kevin will be bullshitting everyone right afterwards. Let's see. President Biden urged House Speaker to take the potential for non-president, saying the threat of default was totally irresponsible. Agreed. Everybody reiterated, I didn't see any movement. Yeah, well, sorry, dummy. But I thought Biden was weak and incapable, right? Wasn't? By the way, are they? House Speaker gave a heated rebuttal to a Russian reporter in Israel today. I see this. Oh yeah, that was, and good on him for doing that. But yeah, he's got nowhere to go in terms of this, because his back is literally up against the wall. There is no there, and he's not going to lose it. Like he's going to, even if a clean debt ceiling thing goes through, and the maggots who didn't want him to be speaker decide to attack him and hold a floor vote. It won't change shit. As a matter of fact, he'll probably survive the vote. Again. Meets Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and other congressional leaders discuss the debt ceiling hike. More than 5,500 people are still unaccounted for in an area of flood-hit Congo. Here's a look at the top stories of the day. Okay. Hosting Nakba event. An event partnership with pro-Palestine groups to commemorate Nakba Day, which marks the Zionist forces' ethnic cleansing of historic Palestine. Yeah, this is all going to be on his back for a while. $2 billion. I'm guessing this is about Jared. Yeah. Jared and Ivanka got $640 million as White House advisors. Ivanka got 18 trademarks from China. Jared got $2 billion from the Saudis. Jared got $6.35 million in PPP loans. Ivanka Jr. and Eric are being sued for fraud. Yeah, exactly. There should go. American investment. Drop a thumb if you agree with Elizabeth Warren that Jared Kushner must be investigated for his corrupt $2 billion deal with the Saudis. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's not going to pan out, and he's going to lose it to with their stupid Nemo City or whatever it's called, the Line City. I mean, it's got so much like Xi Jinping hubris all over it. That whole fucking, we're going to build a line in the sand, literally. So it still doesn't sound like Comer has evidence incriminating Joe Biden. Yes.
Bidens have received millions of dollars from China. It is inconceivable that the president did not know it. The Bidens have received millions of dollars from China. It is inconceivable.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
That the president did not know it.
Yeah, here's the problem with your entire fucking argument, and I will make this until I'm tired of making it. No one else will stop me, is that what the fuck did they bribe him to do? Because apparently they wanted to be fucked in the ear. It's so odd. China gave the Bidens millions of dollars to treat them like shit. It's so weird. We have never had a more contentious business, trade, and arguably military relationship with China than we do right fucking now. So what was the bribe for? What did it do? America last, America first. He's throwing hats at people at a McDonald's. Good Lord. Bank records show that the Biden family, their associates, and their company received over $10 million from foreign nationals and their companies. Chump change. And by the way, Trump literally got a payment of $17 million, of which he took $15 million out in cash while he was president into his Chinese bank account in one single transaction. Why the fuck is that not at the, lay that right next to what you're accusing the Bidens of and go, we can't have presidential corruption. So we're looking into any situation where a president or a vice president, I mean, I am fucking around. They're never going to give a shit. Come on. But $17 million, Trump took out $15 million right out of the account in a fucking day while he was president. And by the way, while he was telling the world that he's got a great relation with Xi, they're working on a trade situation. They're going to sign his agreement. There's no they're being very professional with COVID. Blah 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 blah. All across the country, Democrats are once again using veterans to try to scare you and falsely attack me and other Republican representatives, just like they did with Medicare, just like the Democrats did last. This is. Let me tell you something. Okay, let's see what she has to say.
Okay, let's get real here.
Okay, let's get real. Okay, all right, okay.
Oftentimes, the attacks from the left and their lies are so absurd and far off.
They are. That they make me just blink, y'all.
They make me laugh. But
But this is mean.
Other times they just downright make me mad because they hurt people.
Oh, you know what they don't do though is they don't cut actual funds towards veterans. They might, sticks and stones, lady, I think is the argument.
All across the country, the Democrats are ramping up another set of lies and false attack ads, this time trying to desperately politicize and scare our veterans.
No. Really? Politicizing our veterans? Like, I don't know, pretending you signed the VA Choice Act when it was actually signed into law by the previous president? Like that?
It's disgusting, it's a complete lie, and it's consistent with how today's Democrats in D.C. roll. They lied about Social Security and Medicare, and now they are lying.
No. I mean, you're going to have to watch the Mike Lee video again. No, they're not lying
about cuts to the VA. Let me be clear. Not a single Republican, including me, voted to cut anything at the VA with our Limit, Save, Grow Act. There is nothing in the
Limit, Save, Grow Act? That's what it's called? The LSG Act?
text of this bill that harms any veteran. But the inaction by Democrats on out-of-control spending is harming each and every one of us with runaway inflation and...
Yeah, that's not the cause of inflation at all. You could argue that Trump's insistence on on going to a negative interest rate on the money supply, or even keeping it as low as he kept it in general for as long as he did, insisting that it go even lower instead of face the recession that he actually brought about in February of 2020, even before COVID had an impact on the economy. I think maybe think about that. Maybe
$32 trillion in debt. Republicans support our veterans.
Trump was responsible for a third of that.
Because we love our veterans. And
we love them. Unless they get a job as Capitol Police officers, in which case...
we love the freedoms we all enjoyed because of their bravery and commitment to our country. If you are a veteran seeing this message, know that I have your back, and so does our entire Republican Party. We love you. I love you.
And all we're doing is refusing to pay bills that we passed already in Congress because as political brinksmanship, and it will stop payments to you if we do that. But we know that we can't actually get elected to enough offices to actually implement our actual plans. So we're trying to force the other branches of government and the other half of our particular body in the House to acquiesce to our desires, even though we haven't earned that size of a seat at the table in any stretch.
And we'll always support you, even when these desperate Democrats use their dirty tricks to try to scare you over and over.
Oh, they're trying to scare you
again.
Yeah, she didn't actually say anything, which is not surprising. Facts. These cuts will lead to 81,000 job losses, 300 million fewer outpatient visits, 6,000 staff cuts, and a backlog of 134,000 disability claims. Democrats gave the VA $17 billion under the American Rescue Plan, with $2 billion still unspent. Republicans took it away in Section 201. There it is. Let's see. Rescission of unobligated coronavirus funds, which would be under the rescue plan. Yeah. Voted for these are the ads she's talking about. Firing 81,000, it makes VA backlog worse. Yipe, that's a strong one. And so she's getting phone calls. Hence, her putting this.
Okay, let's get real here.
All right, y'all leave me alone, okay? I didn't know what this does. This is a lie. It's been debunked. House Republicans have made clear we will not cut veterans' benefits. It's time for those. That's what you're doing. That's what the cuts to those funds mean. That's where those funds are going. Ugh. U.S. provides Ukraine with $1.2 billion for air defense and artillery. Yeah. By the way, this is part of the package from last year. They just dole it out, and they every time the actual stuff goes out, it's like when you order something, you don't charge your credit card until it ships, and somebody has to stamp it. Okay, yes, this is going out the door. That's what this is. Everybody, they triple dip the numbers. That's why everybody on the Republican side thinks that we've given Ukraine $300 billion, because we've given them just over 100 in material aid, and anyways. What specifically is it for? What anti-missile air defenses? Corroborating reports that Ukraine are struggling to stop Russia's missile barrages and aircraft. Corroborating reports that Ukraine are struggling to stop Russia's missile barrages and aircraft. You tell us, war clandestine. George Orwell's right. Astute observer, man with iPhone, bioclandestine joined October 2020. Biolabs guy, I was banned in 2/25/22, 11 months ago, for writing the viral thread about the U.S. funded biolabs in Ukraine. In this thread, I'm going to administer the biggest "I told you so" in history. Holy shit, they was Ukraine. Zelensky said the Russians are firing at military installations. How broad is this term? Okay, yeah. Again, yeah, biolabs, because they deal with wheat blight, because if the wheat supply drops in Ukraine, people all over the world die. Oh my God, I'm so fucking lazy. Hump Day, of course, you're welcome. And we got to be careful because when we, Gary Hoey, there you go. Oh dear. Oh dear. Hello, delicious. Hello. You seem lovely. How are you? Hello. Hello. Run for your life. This Santos arrested just over the hump. There's a lot of lady humps pictures that happen in these things. Yep, there you go. And dogs for some reason. Okay, happy hump day, Wheaton Terrier. Okay. I'm always suspicious of accounts like that, because those are the ones that end up being, I love dogs. I just posted over my dogs all day long, dogs, and then the election rolls around and they're like, we have to stop giving money to Ukraine, and Donald Trump is the only person that can save America, after they've run up a bunch of accounts because people subscribe to dog pictures. Tommy Tuberville, whatever, says the jury finding that Trump is a sexual predator makes me want to vote for him twice. Wait a minute. What was that quote? They are going to, hold on a minute. They're going to do anything they can to keep him from winning. It ain't going to work. People are going to see through the lines. A New York jury had no choice. See through the lines. Okay. See through the lies or read between the lines, dum-dum. And then he retweeted Bobik's tweet adding 100% MAGA. Senator Tuberville says New York vote against Trump makes him want to vote for him twice. Well, have fun in jail, dum-dum. You can't vote twice. Offers explicit support for white nationalists, zero ambiguity. Do you believe they should allow white nationalists in the military? Well, they call them that. I call them Americans. Okay. Yeah, just take turns being awful. Goodbye. Trump had his own bank accounts in and doing business with China throughout his term. Ivanka too, but the entire Trump family, put the entire Trump family in prison and then come talk to me, jackoffs. Agreed. The Biden crime family did everything Democrats accused the Trump family of doing. Apparently not, Ryan. We actually have documentation. Again, Trump got $17 million in a Chinese bank account and took $15 million of it out while he was president. His son had to plead the fifth 400 times. Yeah, there we go. Yes, if Hunter Biden committed a crime, he should be charged, but making money off family names has been around for centuries. And you remember that Trump family, Chinese trademarks, Kushner, Middle East, rule of law, requires consistency. I've read reporting on Comer's new Biden scandal, and I'm sorry, what is the crime again? Hunter made money off the family name. Okay, not a crime. If it was, the Trump kids would have been locked up ages ago. Agreed. Yeah, wait till Comer learns about the Biden or the Trump family. Sorry guys. Unlike the corrupt Biden family, the Trump family actually built things and hired. Oh, that's the Chicago Trump Tower. Yeah, he's the smallest investor in that building. And he got it by taking out loans on buildings that were worth less than he said they were. So it's fraudulent money. He gamed the system, which I think you guys are obviously proud of. What? The second trend? I don't even know what the fuck. Mark, look at the way the Trump family was treated. They've never done anything wrong. They have abused Trump's children. And they're grown people. Even Barron. They didn't. When the fuck did anybody come after Barron as a kid? Other than saying, fuck, he's tall. He's almost as tall as the security guard at Tiffany's at the first floor of Trump Tower. You mean like that? What the fuck does that have to do with going after Bannon? We got Philip Bittner is joining us. Give me 1 second, and I'll bring him in. Excellent. Hold on 1 second. Let me bring this over here. Got a little thingy to do. Phil, can you hear me? I'm just going to check that in there.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to bring you in just 1 moment. I got to do the old copy and paste and put you in there, and we'll get there. Glad you're all right. Crazy stuff going on.
Yeah. What, did they just have more missiles come in? I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been having them. We've been having them regularly. So.
Right. Here you go. Whoop. There you are. Hey, welcome. Ta-da. I'll have you know. Yep. I'll have you know, my friend. I drove all night so we could have this talk. Because I didn't trust the system in LA as far as being able to run the show. And pardon me if I'm a bit exhausted, but we will make our way through this.
No, sure.
Yeah. But so we were just talking a second ago before you came on about the funds released by the Biden administration, like another 1.2 billion in air defense. Yeah, which is part of stuff from a package last year. All the stuff just gets allocated out, and I was telling everybody that's how they do it. Everybody's like, another 10. You're like, no, that's a 10 from the package last year. As it goes out,
it was 40,
yeah,
I
40.
believe.
Yes,
if
correct.
my recollection is correct. So
that
this is
correct.
just this is another tranche of the 40.2
exactly
that was already allocated. So,
right.
Nevertheless, still very welcome. You know,
yes,
I mean, the Ukrainians are grateful for it.
Yes. And we'll get into some of that. But how are you? What's the latest from there? And then I'll get into my questions and any of the chat
actually, it's relatively quiet for me because Kiev is so protected now with very strong air defenses that they normally get these things when they're coming on the kind of suburbs, outskirts of town. And I live very center of the capital. So I haven't actually, aside from last Thursday's event with the Ukrainian drone that went astray, and they shot that down over Maidan. I was right there. I was on the air with Tom Hartman last Thursday when that happened, and that was a bit jarring. But even when it happened, I knew that it sounded to me more like something getting shot out of the sky because there wasn't any. It's a different sound pattern when things hit, so I wasn't too freaked out. But you know, like what was it? 2 nights ago, we had 35 missiles launched at us, and all 35 were shot down. I mean, there's a good chance that there's a Patriot system working somewhere in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Although I know one is down near Zaporizhia, I believe. I think that's the consensus is one is down there.
Yeah,
near Zaporizhia. But I don't think they only have one. I think there's 2 in country, and I think one of them is here.
Right. And currently there's also been a huge reversal of ground gained by the Wagner group, I think, in Bakhmut, and Prigozhin is clamoring that his folks are getting encircled.
A lot of crazy stuff. By the way, I'm getting a little reverb.
Sorry.
A little return.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a crazy few days with Prigozhin since we last spoke.
Yep.
He played a really risky game by saying he was going to withdraw from Bakhmut and I'm going to take my ball and go home. With all of his boys, and that freaked out a lot of people in Russia and Russian military. Again, it's more of this fighting beneath the czar. So it's been interesting to see the media coverage of Prigozhin, because they're like, oh my God, Prigozhin is openly criticizing Putin, and could he be stepping up to a confrontation with Putin? And it just shows a serious lack of understanding and what the hell is going on over here, and how Russia works. Putin cannot get direct. If Putin gets directly involved, it's already over. Right. It's done. The winner has been selected. The guy who will be blamed for the tragedies is about to be thrown under the bus, if not already. That's when Putin will step down from his high perch. He cannot be, if he gets directly involved, the whole system falls apart, because he must always be seen to be above reproach and above criticism. It's not his fault that everything's going to hell in Ukraine. Right. If only he had better people working for him.
Sure.
The narrative.
That's the czar thing you're talking about. If only Tsar only knew.
If the czar only knew.
Right.
It's a historical thing within Russia. So that's not what's going on with Prigozhin.
Well, and also, can he not
pot shots at Putin?
Right. If it ultimately, the minute Putin acknowledges the failures around somebody like Prigozhin directly, it means he does know. It is that he breaches that awareness, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, but then that goes back to my original point of, when Putin comes down and makes an edict, when he gets his hands dirty and lowers himself to get into the fray, the decision will already have been made. It will either be Prigozhin or Kadyrov or Shoigu or whomever, who's going to get it in the neck, and that decision will already be made before he publicly gets involved. So right now Prigozhin played a very a risky hand, and it appears as though he has succeeded. We don't know for sure, but he said, I'm going to leave on the 10th, and then at the last minute said, no, I guess I am going to get more ammo, so I'm going to stay. And then Kadyrov threatened to bring the Chechens in, and there was it's this infighting in the boyar class beneath the czar, and it's what I've been talking about for months. It shocks me that I saw this thing on Times Radio, because I do watch Times of London snippets that they put on YouTube.
Sure,
because sometimes they have interesting people. But my God, are there people ignorant? These are Brits. They live in Europe, for God's sakes. Maybe study a little bit. But the level of ignorance about what they are asking these guys, these experts, they're asking them, does this show that Prigozhin is going to make a run for the Kremlin? It's like, it's not how it works in Russia.
Right.
It's not. Right. That's not anywhere how it works. That's nowhere near how it works. So it's interesting to see the international press corps scrambling to try and understand the complexities of Russia.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to show you something if I can bring it up.
And we had May 9th. We had May 9th yesterday, which we should discuss.
Yeah. So that's that is exactly what I was bringing up. Because I was looking yesterday at the at the folks that were talking about it, who normally comment on it online, who watched it, from the Russian vloggers that have either fled the country, like the Russian dude who's in Canada, I think, and then this other like your favorite
kid
Russian
who's out in Korea.
Yeah,
there's a kid who's out in Korea. There's a kid who's
one in Georgia.
Georgia.
One who fled to, And they were all talking because they all watched it and they all speak Russian and they all, watched the parade like I would watch the 4th of July thing in DC or something. And
or Macy's Day Parade on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. Habitually almost.
Only with more missiles.
Yes.
And guys
in this particular, everybody was talking about how kind of pitiful it was. That was a word that kept being used. Even the parade was pitiful. Like I heard that word so many times amongst all these different people. And they were, one of them said something I thought was very interesting. It was like, it was this vain attempt by Putin to attach the actions in Ukraine to the successes of World War II with a sticky note. Like literally the glue on a Post-it note. He was trying to hold them together and say these are the same with as adequately as you would with a Post-it note.
Yeah. And I can never, as much as I'd like to try, Al, I can never fill Johnny Million's boots. So you might want to correct that.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I forgot the name of that. There you go. Sorry. Boink. I got that one. There you go. Boink.
I know we're both bald men, but come on now.
Yeah, right. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, it was pathetic. I mean, I put out a vlog yesterday on May 9th. I went up to the World War II park where they kind of commemorate Ukraine. I made the point of kind of like, you can tell the difference between these two countries because these guys the Russians are pulling out all the pomp and circumstance, even though it was as anemic as it was, because I do remember when I lived in Moscow, May 9th there are a couple of dates, a couple of holidays on the Russian post-Soviet /Soviet calendar that are big uns. They're real big uns. And one of them is New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, January 1st. That's because the Soviets, trying to get rid of religion, lumped everything together on a non-religious day, but wanted to keep the trappings. And the other is May 9th. And when I lived in Moscow, I remember the preparations for that parade are enormous. And my apartment building was on what's called the golden the circle, the golden ring circle, which is kind of your big, a roadway ringing the road. And I would see these tanks and armored personnel carriers, and all the kind of, kit as it drove down to line up down a street called oh my God, this is terrible. What is that? It's a central road, and it goes down to Red Square. Anyhow, so I would be a bare eyewitness to this thing, and it was enormous.
Right.
It was one of the biggest days on the Russian calendar. And so to watch what happened yesterday was just like, oh man, and there were it's normally dignitaries come, like Bush went one year and sat next to Putin, and it's a big deal because it's a commemoration of the Allied victory. And, the Soviets paid a huge price for that victory. The Russians don't like to, the Russians like to claim the victory for themselves, but the entire Soviet Union was involved, including a lot of Ukrainians. So this is a big deal. And it was pathetic. It was, it was pathetic, but it's not going to hurt him. It's not going to hurt him. It's
right.
It's just people. I've seen analysis like from GCHQ in the UK, which is the kind of their version of our, national security agency or Homeland Security. It's where all their intelligence is combined, the Brits. And they put out an analysis saying that they thought that more vehicles were not put there because there was a fear that people would be like, well, why aren't those on the front lines? Our boys are dying. The tanks shouldn't be on Red Square parading. They should be out there fighting. I mean, the Brits are normally pretty good with their spycraft, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of a dig more than anything in reality. I would call that their own little psyop poke at the Russians, because ultimately, shouldn't Russia have plenty of military materials and military armaments and tanks and whatnot to fight a little country like Ukraine? That's the thing. They're the second biggest. This goes to, I posted a thing about the Chinese economy yesterday because the more I dug into it and the more I was looking at other people's reporting and then checking their numbers, it became abundantly clear to me that the Chinese economy is, while there's some people are saying it's like $18 trillion and therefore getting within shooting range of the US's $24 to $26 trillion economy as far as GDP, that it would be a miracle if it's above 10. Most likely it's below $8 trillion. I've seen numbers that are absolutely believable that bring it closer to 5.6, which is on par with Japan. Japan is 5.4, I believe, and has nowhere near the volume of people. And again, I've said, if you got a loaf of bread and a stick of butter, and you've got a family, there's enough bread and butter to go around. But if your neighbor also has 3/4 of a loaf and 3/4 of a stick of butter, but they have 100,000 people living in their house, then clearly the resources don't go as far. And you can say that the numbers are equal, but they are not if they are spread out over a group that big. And in the case of this matters in terms of this conversation, simply because they're the ones coming to Russia's rescue. That Russia's supposedly having China come to its rescue. And in reality, right now, Russia's receiving, like, the export numbers that China was reporting to the World Bank and the IMF and all these things, saying our exports are up 56%. Above, by the way, ass. You know, they're not telling you, like, the material number because it's percentages. You know, if one person is in a room and another person enters, the population of the room has increased 100%. So, you know, that's the numbers they're dealing with. Well, all of it is just crap they are dumping on Russia. Russia is buying a lot of Chinese garbage to basically put in shops to sell to their populace to make the store shelves look full. And a lot of it's like cast off. It's like outlet quality stuff from China that they're just getting rid of. It's the same stuff they sell on Temu and the same stuff they sell on, you know, Alibaba, you know, AliExpress and those kind of things. It's just they make it all the time, so they just want to shovel it out there. And Russia's just getting a bunch of it because it can be traded in yuan. It's the only way they can give yuan back to the Chinese. That's the other fucking thing. So that, you know, China's giving Russia aid in the form of Chinese yuan that they can only spend on Chinese stuff, because they're not, unlike the US dollar, you can't take yuan to fucking France and buy cheese with it. It doesn't work that way at all. It is literally just them casting a line into Russia with hooks on it and just yanking it back. And so it's no surprise.
I mean, it's for you know, them, it's a captive consumer market, basically. So
right. And they're tightening that noose every fucking day. And it's terrible for the Russian people and for the Chinese people.
Oh yeah. And it's going to get worse.
Yes.
And it's going to get a lot worse. And Russians, I mean, I know this anecdotally because I have friends who either live in Russia or have fled Russia but are still in contact with their families. And so, you know, this is anecdotal. Take it for what that is. But yeah, I've spoken to a lot of my friends in Russia who say, I mean, like, you can get the essentials, you can get foodstuffs. It's, you know, but you can tell that the shelves are not as stocked as they used to be. There's very specific things you can get, other things you cannot get. And the anxiety, because they all know what's on the horizon. I mean, there will be hoarding, I'm sure. There will be all sorts of stuff as we continue to go through this. So, it's you know, well, look, I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I mean, this is unwinnable for them. It's so sad.
Yeah.
In so many different ways, because they can't win this war. It's not possible. The best they can hope to do is to walk away with still the land bridge to Crimea intact. And I don't even think they can do that. In fact, I'm very confident they're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, there's all this talk of the new conscription rules that are being apparently put out to kind of circumvent a mass mobilization, and reading the tea leaves. Does that mean that Russia is bearing down for a long war? I don't give a shit what Russia is bearing down for or not.
Right.
They're going to lose this war. I don't know why it's so hard for people to give Ukraine agency. They're either pitied or they're, oh, well, obviously the big bad bear is going to kill them and there's no way Russia's going to defeat them. No, the Ukrainians are going to have their voice heard, and they're going to wage war. And and we've given them, quite a lot of kit to do it, but they're also highly motivated to do it, because if we can push back Russia to the 1990 border and then stake, put a fence in it and just say, that's it, Russia would have to circle back and actually restart from zero, because presumably they wouldn't even have Donetsk or Luhansk. But the Ukrainians are about to really, we're going to see. Zelensky, there was a huge meeting of NATO defense ministers today, and I want to say it was Brussels. And Zelensky, the head of the armed forces in Ukraine, said, I don't have time to meet with you. I don't even have time to do a teleconference with you because of how tenuous and how well, not tenuous is not the word he used. That was me. He said that there was, basically things are really intense, and I can't even meet with you on teleconference. Zelensky is not a guy who does stuff like that. So they're gonna bring it to the Russians very soon. What are you bringing up here? What is exploding there?
This is the on the 8th. This is the day before yesterday. When they launched, the Russians launched 35
it was a big
drone
day.
attacks, and all of them were shot down by the Ukrainians. Not a single one hit their target, which is a first.
There was some debris. Debris that fell down on a building.
Right.
Aside from that, we escaped pretty much unharmed. But it's just continuous stuff. I'm surprised they didn't hit us harder on May 9th because of the real serious importance of it. But they, ever since the drone attack, whatever that was on the Kremlin, we're back to, every night there's an air raid siren. That's how we're living.
But it doesn't
not
change surprising, obviously, at this point. But it's because there's obvious movement. Like I said, at last report, the Russians have ceased operations at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. They've moved out effectively.
Troublingly, there's reports that maybe they may have placed explosives on one of the reactors. International
They've said that
Atomic
before.
Agency
We had that same report the last time.
Yeah, but this was the IAEA who was saying it this time, and if the Russians kind of allude to it, I take that with a grain of salt. If the IAEA is saying we think they have actually, explosives in reactor 4, it's concerning. But if again, this is one of those other things that, like, if Russia does something like that, it's over. It's done. That is a dirty bomb that will poison hundreds of miles, depending on where the wind is blowing. And that's it. It's done. Then it's direct a no-fly zone maybe, or some sort of other ratcheting up of Western support for Russia, or other attacking them in other areas, not just Ukraine. Let's see what happens with if they get cut off from Kaliningrad, for example, or if we barricade them up in Arkhangelsk, where the Arctic Sea Fleet is located. We blockade their Arctic Sea Fleet. That means they lose both Sevastopol and Arkhangelsk. They're screwed.
Right.
Well, they're screwed anyhow. But
yes,
I'm worried about Zaporizhzhia, but I'm not.
In the same way we were worried about it last year when they were saying basically the same thing. And the IAEA sent their people in right afterwards. Again, I don't think for a second I don't appreciate the IAEA. They are also the people who hired Scott Ritter at one point, parked him in Russia to do God knows what. So And also,
I mean,
here's
the UN is a very
yeah,
it's
curious organization sometimes.
It's a big organization, and
yes,
not
it
everybody's
is
competent.
That's right. Here's a video that was posted on.
Is that one of these?
This is the Ukrainians. This is a remote control machine gun.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians are testing out.
Hell, the second I saw that, I was like, "That's Ukrainian." The Russians don't do stuff like this.
No,
Russians
they
don't do stuff like this. This is Ukrainian.
Right. So they have this. Now again, unless it's got a belt feeder in here in this tank or whatever, it's kind of useless once it runs out of rounds. And it's good for, I guess, riding up on a ridge, firing some stuff, and then you roll it back, so you don't have to send a guy up there. It would be great for cover fire if you're trying to remove people. It's not going to be one of those things where they can this is. I love how everybody with ChatGPT and the rise of AI and stuff, they're always talking about autonomous robots that are going to be killing machines, with the problem that the robots would run out of ammunition just like people would, and without a directive to go back to some place, and with the ability to be tracked back to those places, unlike human beings, there's reason it's an inefficient way of doing any kind of.
I'm not a soldier. I'm not a soldier, but I've been in combat enough times. I would suspect that the role for something like this would be essentially it's a grenade.
Yes,
it's just a grenade.
Yes,
it's I don't want to go there myself, so I'm going to chuck something that I don't mind losing in there first to take out the bad guys
all
in
drones
the room
are that way.
I don't want to physically enter. Right.
That's right.
It's just a strike vehicle.
Yes, one of the
smart, those Ukrainians.
Oh yes, they made it and modified it themselves out of like an ATV. And
so if people like my vlog on May 9th that I put out yesterday, they're gonna really like. I've got material for a story I did about drones. And it's funny. I'm not going to give everything away because I want you to watch my vlogs, but
sure,
you can actually go to a store not far from where I'm sitting right now and buy a drone that is kitted out to drop hand grenades. And that's a commercial. That's like, I mean, I know we have problems with our gun laws, but boy, oh boy,
good Lord.
Not to be glib. I shouldn't be glib, especially after Texas. But the point is that you can go around the corner and buy a drone, a commercial style drone that has been outfitted to drop munitions. That's how standard drones have become as part of the war.
Right.
It's I mean, we've already crossed the Rubicon with this one. I mean, drones are going to drones already have changed the face of warfare, and they're going to continue to do so. So I love that thing. That was very cool. I hadn't seen that before. Thank you.
And a lot of people are afraid with AI. They're like, that robots are going to set up and then they're going to wipe out humanity, blah, blah, blah. And that's always a big fear. Like, look, until they start printing their own bullets directly from whatever, once they start munching metal, turning it immediately into a projectile and being able to eject it, in some way, then maybe you'll have reason to worry. But they'll also have to be strong enough to do the grinding, sit still long enough to do it, and then also position themselves in a way that they could project. Do you know how much physics is involved in that absurdity?
Oh, yeah.
It's great in a cartoon, but it's ridiculous. And I've told this to a couple of folks that have watched, maybe back in the day. But my dad worked with a guy. My dad's an architect, and he did a lot of engineering projects. And he worked. He had Air Force above top secret clearance for a while during the 70s. When he was still at university, because they were designing a system where they could basically IKEA an airfield. They created their job was, it was very much like NASA. They said, we want to be able to drop one platoon, 2 crates and a bulldozer in the middle of the jungle or in the middle of the desert and make an airfield in under 12 hours or whatever, with 2 giant hangars and Quonset huts for the people there. And so they had to get all this shit and IKEA it down into this stuff and have it so that the guys could do that. And my dad was on that project as an engineer because that's one of his specialties. And so he had a guy who was working for him in his office who was...
By the way, you thank your dad for me, because I'll bet you dollars for donuts I probably slept in one of those things.
No question you did. You absolutely have.
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
Yes,
I'm sure I did. I have
if you've
no
been in
doubt
any of those...
whatsoever.
Yep. If you've been in a pop-up airfield, my dad had a part of making it possible. And not just in our country, because we also
areas.
we gave that system to allies. Yeah. So anyways, he had this guy who I will not name, but his first name was Al, so it always got confusing when I would come into the office because we would both hear our name when anybody spoke. But he worked in the office, and he was an engineer and an architect as well, and worked on the team. But he also was kind of a bit of a welder and an artist, so he would weld together sculptures and that kind of stuff. And at one point, he had a display of things that he had designed and made welded prototypes, not active prototypes, but welded prototypes. And one of them was a machine gun on bird legs with these fetlock legs that would, as it walked, would sort of, the elbows would bend in and out like that. And it had 3-prong legs so that no matter which direction it went, it had 3 points of stability on each side. So it could dig in, it would position its leg, and wherever it had to fire, it could reposition the legs. Okay, so he shows this off at this kind of like technology fair in Frankfort, Kentucky, where I was because my dad did like all these like local, the Kentucky government buildings and that kind of stuff. So they did this little show there. And then we never saw him again. He got scooped up by a government R&D team. He got hired right after that show. And I have no doubt whatsoever that Al has been working on that kind of project ever since.
Yeah, what else is DARPA for?
Exactly, yeah. So he went to work on those kind of things. And partly, they scoop people up for 2 reasons. One is, if you can make it and it works and it's a good thing, we'll use it. There's also the other, what if somebody else tries to make this? What are the problems with it? So you hire a really good engineer who's really devoted to trying to make this thing work, and then you test it to failure in all fronts to go, okay, more than likely if the Chinese or the Russians or the Arabs or somebody comes up with one of these things and tries to use it in war, what are the problems they're going to have? What are your design limitations? Put their guns on it and see what happens. Put their caliber of, their preferred artillery, and run through those cycles. And it's something that we do a lot of. One of the biggest things the military expenditures in the United States do is test stuff till it's useless. Because the idea is that if anybody else tries it, we want to have a defense for it. That's because of the Cold War paranoia and a bunch of other things, but we've always done that, and we've doubled down on it in the last few decades. It's very smart. It's what you should do if you give a damn about that kind of stuff. I wanted to show you real quick. It's in Russian, so I can't read all of it, but I can tell from the translation underneath it. This is the current number of liquidated personnel. This is deaths, according to the Ukrainians. Liquidated personnel is 193,430. That's not casualties. That's people who are dead, according to them. That is an enormous number. Because remember, when we talked about this number maybe a month and a half ago, it was close to this. And the number was like, well, it's casualties. And the way they're using the term casualty, it might be people who are dead, but also people who are off the battlefield because they've lost a foot, or they are injured, or they can't shoot, or they lost their trigger finger, or they got, trench foot, or they got VD from each other or something, and they can't fight anymore, right? And so the number might be all of those. They have literally started making it clearer on this, that this is the number of dead, which is an enormous. And I don't know if you saw.
I'm sure they're exaggerating it to a certain degree, but how much? I mean, right. I've talked to guys who have come off the front lines, not least of which Malcolm, and the Russians just chuck themselves. I mean, it's their doctrine. So they just throw themselves at Ukrainian lines to try and probe it, to try and overwhelm it with sheer numbers. So, I have heard, figures of like 1 to 15. For every one Ukrainian soldier that's dead, there are 15 Russians. And again, I have no way of verifying that.
I just thought it was interesting.
Coming off the line say that.
Yeah,
it's devastating.
Yeah, and they're and insofar as like tanks and those kind of losses, those are easier to verify because they either exist or people are geolocating the number of ones that have been blown up or pictures of them, and they can tell where they are. They've destroyed 306 anti-aircraft war systems, and 308 aircraft, 294 helicopters. Like beyond the 308 aircraft, which includes like transports. And
I'd be curious to find out whether or not the Ukrainians are including in that tally, equipment that they are grabbing, because there's a whole thing about Russians like just fleeing their positions and leaving, infantry fighting vehicles, tanks, artillery pieces, just leave it behind, and the Ukrainians go, "Thank you very much," and sweep it up. I wonder if any of those figures are included in there. What do we have here?
This is a Russian firing a missile,
this is,
and it will not fire.
He doesn't like
it. Just throws it.
So he just throws it.
I
mean, it's
it's so weird. It's so frigging weird.
I mean, they're gonna lose so badly. It's and if Putin survives somehow, and 5 years down the road they can swing back and take another run at it. I mean, but by that time the Ukrainian borders will be. I firmly believe the Ukrainian borders will be solidified.
They'll be like Finland,
and it will be a defensive line. It will be a better version of a Maginot Line that actually works.
Right.
Although there's some historians that poo-poo that whole argument, but regardless, once they have 91 borders again, they are going to write it in stone. The Ukrainians, they're that's what I saw.
That's in Kiev. That's that glass bridge people have seen.
That's what I heard.
Yeah,
that's what I heard when I was on with Tom Hartman last Thursday. I heard an explosion. I was like, "Tom, did you hear that?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "Well, something just went boom." That's what that was. Now that turned out to be a Ukrainian drone
that was off.
That it had gone astray, and it was circling and circling, and eventually they decided to take it down. And frankly, I'm kind of surprised they decided to take it down there, but maybe they didn't have a choice.
Well, I mean, you've seen those control guns. Yeah, you've seen those control guns that allow you to seize control of a drone and land it wherever you want. That's a kind of an amazing, aspect of this war, is that level of technology, that new level of technology where people are commandeering drones digitally. And so
it's like everything in war. It's like everything in war, though, is that somebody develops a weapon system, and then the opponent, your enemy, or whatever, has to develop a defense for it. And it's always this constant competition of like, I've got the superiority in my weapon, my offensive tactics, and that gives me an advantage until you come along and neutralize it with your defensive capability. Look what happened with the Patriot and the Kinjal. This is great.
So this is the Russian delegate in Ankara.
Don't fuck around,
snatching the Ukrainian flag, and the Ukrainian delegate punches him in the face and takes his flag and says, "No, you don't get to snatch our flag from somebody. What are you doing?"
And this is in like Dubai or something.
Yeah,
this is somewhere in the Gulf.
It's in Ankara,
which is why I love. Where is it? Is it in Ankara?
Yeah,
that makes sense as well. What I love is the venue security, how they respond to it, because that's that part of the world. This is not acceptable.
No,
but at the same time, that Ukrainian was,
Oh
hey,
yeah,
man.
Well, it's a very
you started it. You grabbed my flag.
He walks right up and just snatches it while the guy's holding it while they're talking, and then that guy goes, "What the hell?"
There's a new one.
Bonk.
There's a new one that I don't know the exact details of it. I've only seen it in looping as a meme.
Sure.
Where there's a new one where a Ukrainian apparently headbutts a Russian who got in his face at some sort of some sort of exhibition or something like that.
Right.
Look, I mean, I'm a little cautious about lauding this too much, because the Ukrainians don't want to come off as being thugs or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, well, they're a little angry because you're killing women and children.
Yeah, and then you have the nerve to go over and snatch their flag away while they're making a statement, while they're literally just standing there, making a speech on camera with their flag behind them, and it's so odd. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised at all. Okay, I have to
of course not. Of course not.
Yeah.
I am not advocating what those Ukrainian diplomats were doing, but there is a sense of satisfaction seeing it because,
like,
fuck you.
So this is
you bomb our country, you kill women and children, and then you
want to
disgrace
keep you from displaying
you act
your
like
flag.
a dick.
Yeah,
you act like a dick in a diplomatic setting. So no, we're not going to put up.
Yeah.
With
So the French have declared the French have declared Wagner a terrorist organization.
Officially.
Yeah. Following it, by the way, following the U.S.'s establishment that they are a terrorist organization. Let's not forget what the story was 2 weeks ago, which was Macron went to meet with China, and therefore he's distancing himself from the U.S. and the EU, and that he's going to get lulled into this and soften the support for Ukraine and blah blah blah. And none of that played out.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah, all of it bullshit. None of it played out the way they said it did. And then they just declared the Wagner PMC as terrorists, as a terrorist group. And
because they are.
Yes, they are, right. And the response was, let's pull out Macron's teeth.
Yeah.
And
thanks for proving our point there, Prigozhin.
Exactly. Also, China is the arms and largely the body armor, for example, that Wagnerites are wearing is Chinese. They know this. Everybody knows this. So this whole great relationship between France and China, and therefore support for the Russians nonsense. It was always garbage. But it's it should be even, in more stark relief, with reality right now.
There's no way on God's green earth. There's no way on God's green earth that France is going to chuck every relationship that they have with their European and North American allies and go, oh, we really like China.
Yeah. No.
I mean, the French can be dicks. The French, look,
it's part of their charm.
In my part of their charm. In my 25 years of bopping around this world, I've been in enough conflict zones, natural disasters, places where people show up and the international community arrives, and the French have always marched to their own tune. They pursue their interests. They pursue French interests that are not always in conjunction with the rest of the European Union or NATO or what have you. And that's just how they do. That's how they do. The French do their own thing, kind of, but then pretty much everybody does.
There's going to be a balance between operating.
We're all going to be on the same side.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the states in general versus the federal government in the United States to a lesser extent, because we're under one particular constitution, unlike the EU, and there are so many variant national constitutions in the EU that it's very different. But in essence, there's always that tug and pull between the federal system and the state system here, and it would be no different between the EU and the individual countries. That's why there's so much wiggle room in all of the EU statements and in their, in their parliamentary actions and stuff. Even I guess the best example is the Paris Accord, because I've shown it many times on my show. But the number of outs and eases that are in that require almost nothing of anybody except what they would voluntarily do is hilarious to read, especially when you see the people who are asserting that it's UN authoritarianism or the WEF using the Paris Accord to take over the United States.
The NATO argument,
silly.
The NATO, proposed 5%, 5%, is it 3%?
Yeah.
2%.
Yeah.
It got bumped up to 3 at some point. Anyhow, regardless, that is also a guideline. It is not a dictate, which is why when Trump came over,
said everybody was
all that
delinquent.
crap about, I'm going to make you pay. It's like, asshole, that's not that's not how NATO works. That's not.
Yeah, it's not a protection racket, dumb fuck.
It's because Europe is not the United States of Europe. Anyhow,
so this is Wagner boss says Russian army has fled Bakhmut. So that the essential part of what's going on in Bakhmut, as far as the Wagner group is that the Russian, and this might be them in a pissing contest with the Russian military, basically calling them, gay, which they tend to do a lot, as a pejorative. It's this weird thing to do, but the idea being that the Russians have, we stayed and we're the ones actually holding this. There may be Russian troops there that are helping hold what parts they have of it, but he's just saying, nah, they left. They're not, or they're not important. He goes, today one of the units of the defense ministry fled from one of our flanks, exposing the front, basically leaving them open, which again is your own dudes are full of, prisoner conscripts anyway. So the idea that you're not just throwing cannon fodder in this direction. Maybe they all just got wiped out because you suck. But anyways, Prigozhin, popularly known as Putin's chef because of the contracts, blah, 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 accused the Russian Defense Ministry of scheming all the time instead of fighting, which I thought was a really interesting phrase that he used, scheming.
Yeah, and he kept referring to grandpa, something about grandpa. I don't know if he was trying to get at Gerasimov or Shoigu
or just the fact that all the soldiers they're pulling up are old.
I don't know what.
Right.
Yeah, maybe. But we started this conversation talking about Prigozhin and all these pronouncements and stuff.
Yes.
And how the international press corps is getting it so wrong with how this strata works within Russia. But there is part of me that is thinking that Prigozhin is getting a little too loud, a little too vocal, and
they're not going to take it for much longer.
Works,
right?
That can work, but yeah, it might get to a point where it's like, even I don't think Putin will publicly interfere, but he might call up Prigozhin and say, you're hurting everybody by this, because ultimately, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But my God, is Prigozhin making some really vocal pronouncements, and it's a risky thing to do. He either comes out of this the victor or he's dead, man.
Right. Exactly. This is something that also happened. This is on May 9th. This was a story that was floating around. I wanted to share too. Was that this pilot that was shot down near Kiev on the first day of the war washed up on shore on the 9th. They found his body at the reservoir just north of the capital. That's part of him. And there's his actual name and his little
for nothing
badge. Yep. Died on the very first day.
Absolutely nothing. Nothing.
Mankashev, and they all refer to him as Roma. And they extracted the body precisely on May 9th and performed mockery in a photo session. One popular Russian Telegram channel lamented because the pro-war military bloggers have been freaking out that he showed up. I had to switch over to this. I mean, the Daily Beast will have a cleaner article about it or whatever, and they're using the same picture. But they know he was a pilot that attacked on the very first day, and then to have it on May 9th on the anniversary of the it's hard to say whether that was it actually on May 9th or the Ukrainians fucking with the Russians a little bit here. That's entirely possible, but that seems to be the case. And then
but then also you had Reznikov come out and say the Minister of Defense come out and say that they had offered to hand over a significant number of Russian soldiers' corpses, and as Reznikov claims that the Russians denied it because in order to take custody of these bodies, they would have to it would verify their loss numbers. Or at least it would contribute to verifying their loss numbers, and they were not willing to do that. I'm trying to bring up the exact number of how many, but it was a significant number of corpses, and the Russians said no, we won't take them because And then the Ukrainians said, we surmise that they won't take them because it would be an admission of their casualty levels.
Right, right.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't
Nope.
care. They don't give a rat's ass about their soldiers living or dead. It's
right.
Well, okay. They want their soldiers to live. Fair enough. But they should be smarter in their tactics if they're earnest in that.
Well, they certainly aren't acting like that's what they want.
Yeah, exactly.
That said, this is from the May 9th.
Also,
parade.
wait, one other quick thing about that handing over the corpses thing. The
Sure.
other thing why the Russians don't want to do it is because if they hand over the corpses, it means they're dead and they have a different payout for their family. So you have to pay the families a larger sum and a different sum than you would if they're just MIA, if they're missing. So that's another reason that's been floated for, which is incredibly disgusting and cynical, but that's how they do. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. So one of the other aspects of the May 9th thing that was a big deal was that Lukashenko was there. And there's been a lot of talk about Russia moving tactical nukes to Belarus, and Belarus being hand in glove with the Russian government. And we've talked many times about how Lukashenko is just, he's at a tipping point himself, that he's on a balancing act right now, because he will go down with Putin when it happens. But he apparently got sick at the May 9th thing and was ushered away during the parade, and then didn't show up at the dinner party, and then left the country. Yeah. Which
had some sort of massive bandage on his hand.
Right.
Did not look comfortable during the entire parade. He arrived unexpectedly. He was really the only dignitary of note who was on, which again plays into this, the fact that Russia's completely isolated. Their big, visitor was Lukashenko, which is pathetic. I mean, everybody else was, I think you had the dignitaries from a couple of African countries and, where Russia's trying to exert their influence. And so they're trying to court the Kremlin as well. So they sent a representative, but normally that stage would be filled. There would be a representative from Great Britain, France, the United States, surely all the allied powers. Even, there was a big thing a few years back about Germany sending a representative. It's a big deal, and there should be major representation. And they got Lukashenko, and then he got sick, in my air quotes. And had to leave. So
he was
Lukashenko. Of course, Lukashenko isn't doing well. He knows he's living on borrowed time. He can't please Putin, and he knows that when this all goes to hell, he's gone too. So,
they were. I mean, his hand was bandaged. He apparently got sick. He got hoarse and could barely breathe on the 5th before this thing. And then he showed up with this, the bandage on his hand, which is usually to cover like where the catheter went in the back of your hand if you were treated for something, even if he was treated there, which is sketchy as hell too. But it says in this reporting, and this is translated from Russian, I believe, after the parade, Lukashenko could not even walk the 300 meters to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. One of the frames of them clearly shows how he was picked up by FSO officers and put into an electric car and shuffled away. That's this video, which apparently I can't play without turning off ad blockers, and the ad blocker stuff is more important at blocking other stuff from sites like this, so whatever. As the Russian Telegram brief writes, to which the Ukrainian journalist Denis Kazansky refers, Lukashenko felt unwell. He was provided with a team of doctors. He canceled all meetings and is on a drip, which is always sounds very macho whenever they put it that way. It was pretty friggin' pitiful. But he was just
he does not look good.
No, he does not. And that in and of itself, under normal circumstances, would be a big deal by itself. The Belarusian leader had to be taken away because he was sick at the May 9th parade, and he didn't even lay a wreath. And whether, there'd be conversations in Russia about whether or not it was true, or he just didn't feel like doing it because he wants to avoid the video of him doing stuff. So, so you just play sick and piss off like that. Those kind of stories float all the time. And would in this particular case, but I genuinely think he's a mess. and I don't. I mean, can you imagine? And this is again towards your like, your discussion about like the human aspect of this war. That can you imagine the stress of your life if you're Vladimir Putin or if you're Lukashenko? Because Lukashenko's not as well protected, but basically in the same shitty position that Putin's in. Somebody always wants you dead. Lots of people really want you dead. Yeah. And nobody wants to keep you alive per se. That's the difference between like Zelensky and them.
And the thing...
Whoops. Did I lose Phil? We good? Hold on. We'll see. He's still up. We'll see if he comes back. As I, and of course, just as I say that, just as I'm like, it's bad if they could take you out. Hold on. He's going to pop back on, hopefully. I will, by the way, whoops. Hi, chat room. By the way, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Glad you guys are here. I keep forgetting to say that because we're in the middle of the conversation. Here comes Phil. I'll bring him back in as soon as he gets back in here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to copy that. Lost him for a second, but he'll be back in just a moment. We'll go to this, and then I'll go to this, and then, okay, yeah, he's good. All right, you're back. Ta-da!
I'm back. Sorry about that. Got bumped off.
No, it happens.
The problem Lukashenko has, that Putin doesn't as well, by the way, is that Lukashenko has been grooming his son to be his heir apparent. He's going for the DPRK model, where he hopes that Belarus can just have a Lukashenko as president, for eternity. So he's been grooming his son to take over from him at some point, and then, the Lukashenko bloodline will continue. Right. So he's got to also be realizing that entire effort, which he has been pursuing for decades, is all for naught. Because he's gone when Putin goes. And when Lukashenko goes, nobody's going to want his son. Lukashenko's name is going to be mud in Belarus. So, it's, of course, the pressure is on both of those men.
Right.
Is enormous. Not that I have any sympathy or compassion for them. Screw them. They're awful human beings who have caused the death of hundreds of thousands of people. And that's not an exaggeration.
Mm-hmm.
So fuck them. But my God, look at both of them. They are both not healthy men. They are not, they're, aside from age, they are not living good lives. And, when you know that you're fucked, I think, this kind of thing has got to be weighing heavily on both of them. And, maybe just don't invade people. Maybe don't suppress your people with torture and murder.
Yeah, what a nutty concept.
Crazy idea. Gherkin, is this Gherkin?
Yeah. So Igor Gherkin has been saying
too, but he's
exactly. Yeah. He's been saying it's time. And for our for people who don't know, bring us up on Gherkin himself.
So Gherkin is the head of the he's the military head of the Donetsk People's Republic. Mm-hmm. And he's a piece of shit, and he's a vile human being who is responsible in many ways for the downing of the Malaysian airline at the beginning of this whole conflict in 2014. He got a weapon system from Russia, and he used it at what he thought was a high-flying Ukrainian plane. It turned out to be a passenger airline, and I think, hundreds of people died in that.
Yeah.
And he, we have him on tape, and he's also just a vile person. He's a thug. He's a real thug. And he has fled from Donetsk and Donbass, and is now living in Russia proper, and is speaking out about how badly the war is going. I'm surprised he has not been suppressed or forcibly suppressed. But he seems to he's serving some purpose somewhere. And he is very hypercritical of the way the military has conducted the war. He's not a big enough fish that he could be considered a boyar. But he is a guy who, everybody said, the Kremlin spins the tale that they're doing all of this for Donbass. Well, Gherkin is like one of their main guys, and he's very, pessimistic, as this article has said, and he's been hypercritical. It's important to note, by the way, and I want to make another quick note about this, because it isn't just Gherkin who's done this. The head of Russian Kherson did something similar as well. I want to talk about that, but I want to finish up with Gherkin in that the Russians keep saying that they're doing everything for Donbass, but we have repeated information from the guys who are actually Donbass citizens who joined paramilitary groups to fight alongside the Russians. And the Russians came in and used these Donbass paramilitary guys as cannon meat. They just didn't give a shit about them. And so if the Kremlin keeps saying, oh, those poor guys who were shelled for all those years after 2014, or all those guys who are being forced to speak Ukrainian and they don't want to be aligned with the decadent gay West. They want to be strong Orthodox Russians, then why did you chuck their paramilitary into the fire for no result? That's what Gherkin has repeatedly said. So this defense of Donbass is bullshit. It's all just them using an excuse to make a territorial and strategic,
claim to a larger field,
claim, what exactly did Gherkin say?
So,
I didn't see.
Gherkin,
I mean,
Gherkin in general,
his
statements are kind of like what we're talking about. If the necessary national measures for the successful conduct of the war are not taken before May, we will not be able to win this war. He's out. He basically says that if we haven't won it already, we ain't going to win it. And so we have a choice. We can bow out of it entirely or just flat out lose. And that will lead to the dissolution of Russia. He's got a very womp face in almost everything he puts up these days.
Yeah. Again, another reason why I'm totally surprised he is still
alive,
walking around talking, and talk, making statements in the public arena. I'm surprised there hasn't been a knock on the door saying, shut the hell up. But again, there might also be somebody in Russia who is protecting him, who thinks that he might be an asset down the road, and so they want to keep him alive. Maybe they're thinking the fortunes change and we're going to bring him back in some sort of capacity in Donbass. I would be shocked if that was viable, but anyhow, he's an awful human being.
But
then again, as I also mentioned, is there's this guy who is the head of Russian occupied Kherson, because Kherson Oblast or province is separated by the Dnieper River, and on the Russian side of the river there's this guy who's he calls it Free Kherson, and he came out with a statement saying, hey guys, let's just put all this behind us and just forget about all the last few months and let's just try and find a way to be brothers again. And all the Ukrainians were like, oh, and he did it in Ukrainian, by the way. He said it in Ukrainian, and all the Ukrainians were like, no, too little, too late, you asshole. We're coming for you.
Speaking of too little, too late, this is Scott Ritter's Telegram channel.
Book release?
No, it's his Telegram channel. I just wanted to point out one really hinky, interesting thing. Convicted pedophile Scott Ritter, by the way. Also a booster of Seymour Hersh's Substack. But this is Seymour Hersh, my 50 years with Daniel Ellsberg. One legend writing about his relationship with another, worth a subscription. He's basically selling subscriptions to Seymour Hersh's subs. It's just so fucking
Ritter's
on
an
the nose.
Moron.
Oh, it's idiotic.
Moron.
And he basically, the only place he shows up besides his own thing is Judge Napolitano, who used to be on Fox News.
What was he? Was he a major or was he a lieutenant colonel? What was the highest rank he achieved? I think it was major, frankly.
Right.
Which is, I mean, I don't want to disparage all the majors out there.
It is a very strange...
An 04 and 05 in the designation of ranks in the U.S. military. But, he's talking shit. He doesn't know what he's talking.
Well, he's also
aside from the fact that he's a useful idiot.
Right. He's also at the fucking parade.
Of course he is. Of course
Like,
he is.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
his channel photo is of a missile. Like, I don't want to hear any bullshit about these people are like, peace, it's the West that's trying to destroy the world, and they won't let peace happen, and we won't let peace, and they won't allow peace. When every one of these fuckers cannot, like, tap dance around Russian nukes fast enough. They just are applauding anybody's, like, even the most casual suggestion of nuclear usage by the Russians is like, well, you asked for it. The guy, like, what's his name from Redacted, Clayton Morris, he's one of the other person that has Scott Ritter on with some regularity. Is the same way. They, like, their thumbnails are constantly applauding, anytime Russia threatens some giant act of violence. They're like, now here it comes. You're about to get yours, buddy. And it's so fucking lame. And especially since I guess they're still in theory selling this idea that, that the West wants war with Russia and Russia was just innocently defending itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Putin's statement of, we don't see any enemies west or east. Well, then, okay, then get the fuck out of Ukraine.
Fuck out, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just looked up, by the way, Ritter wasn't even a major. He's a bloody captain. I mean, no offense to captains, but that he wasn't exactly, he didn't excel in his military, career. And
well, he stalled out for good reason.
Well, and then he was kicked out for good reason. That's right. But to take military analysis from a captain, I mean, in the Marine Corps, again, no disrespect, but there are guys with more, seniority who kind of have bigger picture ideas that might be more clear-headed when it comes to military analysis than a pedophile, discredited Marine captain who clearly is compromised somewhere by Russia.
And either loves authoritarianism in its most violent form, or is so owned by that group that he couldn't possibly act any other way because of his own violent past or the promise of violence in the future that he will get if they are successful, which is the creepier part of that kind of blackmail. Because there are those that Epstein, for example, clearly blackmailed with the idea that if you do, who may have never, quote unquote, offended again, that he, arranged for them to sleep with someone underage, took video of it, held that blackmail, and controlled people using that. That was part of his scheme. But there are also people that, hey man, get into business with me, and there's all the underage victims you could ever fucking want. And that's the scarier and more disgusting part. Yes, we will cover for you, and it's like a playground. And for a lot of, like, folks like Ritter, Russia represents that at that scale. It's fucking awful.
Sure.
And some of the satellite countries. By the way, there's a report on this other. I don't bring this up here. I had to translate it from the Russian on here.
Putin would not have risen to power if the prosecutor general of Russia at the time under Yeltsin had not been had a video of him with two young prostitutes and a bunch of cocaine hadn't been mysteriously leaked to the Russian press and then subsequently put out. Although it was a different time in Moscow, you could have independent media at the time, but somehow this video got leaked, and this prosecutor general who was looking into Yeltsin's family and a whole bunch of the power structure at the tail end of the Yeltsin era, he was suddenly drummed out, and a lot of people say that was Putin's doing. So a honey trap is a honey trap is a honey trap. Whether it's you get compromat on somebody and you own them, and then
I know a really lovely dude who worked on a red team, is a programmer hacker, who magically somehow met this lovely Russian girl who just could not wait to marry him, and and he's a lovely person. However, The rocket speed at which this occurred has always been hinky to me. And the timing of it, that it only happened when he showed up in DC, when he was moved to work on a team in DC. I feel bad for the guy because it had the relationship had to come to an end at one point.
Man, if you go through these people, all of these tankies, all of these guys who I mean, Ritter, I think, is married to a Russian. This kid out in LA, Hinkle.
Yeah.
He's dating a former Miss, Russia. Apparently, there are honeypots all throughout.
Right.
This kind of like fellow traveler, Christian nationalist. Russia is Russia's got it right because they don't put up with the gays. They don't put up with the colored folk. That's their perspective.
Right.
All of that. They understand power better. You don't. They're not hypocrites like we are with our courts and our Judas. And our
due process.
Our system of law and due process. Right. I mean, what a waste of time. I mean, at least those Russians, they get it right. And so that their fellow travelers. I'm sure that I have no doubt that a lot of these women are reporting to the GRU for sure.
It's very strange. This is, by the way, this little leadoff is about a video that plays in the background. It's like a half hour long. It's a big video, but he's basically in this video. He says, "My commanders are stupid," and gives everybody permission to just evacuate, just leave.
Oh my God! Did you see Solovyev's documentary?
No.
Oh
yeah.
Oh hell, you got to go check that out.
Okay.
Julia did it.
Okay.
A full translation. I think the entire 30-minute documentary is out there, and it's Solovyev sitting there talking about. It's all about himself. I mean, the narcissism of this guy is incredible. Right. He's sitting there talking about this enormous war, and he's more upset about the fact that the Italians took his villa, and he's waxing philosophical about these great boys that he's meeting on the front line, and it's all about him. It's all about him. The narcissism. It's incredible. It's watching it. I was just going, you are a very, very bad person. You're a really bad guy. Not even from the effect of like you're killing Ukrainians, you're supporting an illegal war, but also this kind of like, if I was Russian, I'd be like, dude, you're making it all about you. What about our boys?
Right.
What about the war effort? I mean, even if it's not about our boys, tell us about the war effort. No, he's gonna scream for about 10 minutes about how the Italians took his villa.
Right. This is a hold on.
It's a great watch.
Yeah,
it is hysterical from a certain perspective. It is absolutely hysterical, and it's filmed so dripping dramatically. It's all dark shadows, and he's sitting there in his he's sitting there in this kind of studio that's all darkly lit, and he's brooding, and it's so dramatic, and it's just like
is that the one you're talking about?
Is. That's the one. Oh, it's a good watch. You will get a chuckle.
It looks like
will get a chuckle.
It looks like
it's so transparent, and it's so.
It's like
pathetic.
He's giving a deposition in Mordor.
Yeah. He's just it's so the lack of self-awareness of this guy, how he looks, how this whole, and he had his fingers. He had his fingers in all of this. Not an edit was made. He was hanging over the editor in the edit bay for every single cut, every single, he cleared every lighting setup. He did all of it. This is him all over the place. And it's just so sad and pathetic.
All right. Yeah, I'll cover it.
I'm a very important person.
It's 16 minutes long. That's doable. I could do that for our my afternoon show. I'll add that to the palette.
It is. Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
It is a good watch. It is funny as hell.
What
I mean, it's in one way it's funny as hell, in another way it's of course deeply,
it's horrifying,
depressing.
Yeah, of course,
and horrifying. But I love seeing Solovyev being so unhappy.
Miserable.
It makes me smile.
Right. Yes, and making these assholes like walk back their bullshit is one of the best things.
We haven't seen Margarita in a long while. I don't know what's going on with her.
Yeah, we always have to. Yeah, well, yeah, it's
whenever
it's
there's
very
an
telling.
absence. But watch that video. You will get a kick out of it. He is so funny because he's so pissed off.
Right.
So
boo,
sorry.
fuckity who.
Are you upset because your little war is going horribly wrong and you know you're fucked for life?
Right.
You're never going to step foot out of Russia again. And you're probably more likely than not going to end up dead or in a prison cell.
Yeah, I mean, she's the one who's, if you see a consistent part of her conversation is about we're all going to end up in The Hague. Like she says that shit. Yeah, more than almost anybody else.
Well, she says it so that nobody thinks about stepping out of line. She's like we're all in this together. Yeah, we
hang together,
right? Together, we'll all hang separately.
Right.
Not that she gets that reference, but she's her whole thing about The Hague. But they're war criminals, so I hope they do end up in The Hague.
Right,
they're propropagandists, and
it's like whenever she does that, I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time. It's a
good time. The Solovyev documentary there, that 16-minute thing, he does touch on his whole thing about like, they tried to kill me, sort of thing. And I mean, he is not a proper military target for assassination. Assassination,
no.
Full stop, really should not be something that should be conducted. But at the same time, it's like, well, you're an awful person, and you're stoking up the worst in Russia to go kill more Ukrainians. So do watch that. You'll get a kick out of it. You'll get a real kick out of it.
Absolutely. By the way, just so you know, this lady right here, is going to jail because she left a note on the grave of Putin's parents. That I mean, it's hard to kind of see what she's talking about. That why can't you guys take him with you, or take me to him? Like, haunt your own son, bring me to him so I can bring him to you, or that kind of thing. Like a weird not
Russian
quite
mysticism.
An assassination threat, but more of like a witchcraft insult kind of thing or something. But this lady right here.
I mean, there's the story that came out within the last, I want to say, week and a half, 2 weeks, of the guy in the run up to the invasion of Ukraine. Somebody went to him. I mean, somebody high ranking, because there was a very, very small amount of people who had, information that the war was actually going to happen. And they went to this mystic, and they gave him a picture of, was it Biden? And he licked it and said, I know that he will not stand up to our might. We will win, sort of thing. And that was legitimately part of the consideration for the invasion of Ukraine, was this mysticism. Look, Russia is Russia. In Russia, there is still a certain amount of belief in this kind of stuff. Superstitions, mysticism, all of that, not uncommon at all. So, Kooky McCookerson. So
on that note,
she may have been at the cemetery trying to evoke the spirits, which they take seriously enough to actually imprison you.
Yeah, that's essentially what it seems like she was trying to do, was like talk his parents' ghosts into coming and getting him and taking him. Like, you want to be with your son, don't you? And she was charged with
seriously enough that they're actually going to charge her.
They're going to charge her. It's like, obviously,
it's a very dysfunctional country.
Yeah, it's like
there's a lot of work
of a grave or some shit like that. When ultimately all she did was put a Post-it note on a gravestone. It's and again, it's sort of the overreaction aspect in everything they fucking do should in and of itself be a warning that you do not want your country run by those jackasses. Like that above all else, like that's Brittany Griner, any of that stuff. Like you do not want your judicial system to hinge on bullshit like that. Especially, by the way, the tanky, faux-aggressive lefties, alleged lefties, because I don't believe they actually care about what they say they care about, or they would want progress in those areas, and that's the last thing they seem to want. But those people in particular who think that the U.S. government overreaches, that we have mass incarceration at a clip that's unparalleled in the world, and blah, blah, and it's largely because our prisoners survive and live long lives, even if they get a long sentence, which is not the case in a lot of other places, but that's another conversation for another time, especially in the case of Russia or China or you know, the Arab states or whatever, because they just kill you. So this idea that they're like, you know, America bad because of our judicial system being cattywampus, or against, you know, people of color or something, which when that happens is wrong. And we have the right in this country to say it's wrong and take action about it, change our representatives, do all kinds of stuff, which, again, these countries do not have, specifically Russia. But then at the same time, there's like not just
and
a
if
fatalism.
You get upset about it, it's because you expect something different. Whereas this is very hard to it's very hard to wrap your head around this for a lot of Americans, especially those who haven't traveled or gone to places where this is the reason we get upset when our whatever it is, our legal system, our police, our whatever, our politicians, when our mass media, when they fail us, we get upset. In other countries, that's the standard. And it's like, well, nothing we can do about it because the power, you know, there's no recourse. We don't have a vote. We don't have recourse to law. We don't, you know, it's Americans. I know I sound like I'm a flag waving, you know, I am a patriot, but I mean like rah, rah, shish, boom, bah, America.
Jingoist, right. Yeah, there's a difference between being legit, like legitimately appreciative of the rights and privileges you have, and talking about them in a sense of reality.
The fact that, I respect the fact that the reason why people get upset is because they expect something different, whereas that is not the standard in a huge section of the world. In a huge section of the world, it is you have power and that's it. And if you don't have power by whatever means, you are at the whim of the power versus the powerless. There's no recourse to law. There's nothing. And so as bad as when we get it wrong, as bad as that is, I find it heartening that we get upset about it and we try and change it and make it better.
Exactly. Well, and that you have the ability to do it, and you taking that for granted is part of the problem. And I think that's a great way to end.
And seeing that as part of the problem, and seeing when the system doesn't, or when individuals abuse the system and we get upset about it, seeing that as evidence of how the system doesn't work. I don't see it that way. I see it as, we got this guy because the system did work.
Yes.
And we're going to try and rectify it. We're going to try and make it better.
That's right.
You know, whereas a lot of people, sadly, and I must say, it does seem to be, well, I think there's a growing part in the MAGA world where they're so disillusioned, but I also see it on the really hard edge left side where it's like, if I don't have the world the way I want the world to be, then it's clearly all screwed and it's all just lies.
And you have to burn it down.
Screw it.
Right.
Yeah,
well, that's what I would call the TYT message of if we can't have everything, nobody gets anything. And the maggots are the same way to the Republican Party. It's just I have no investment in the regular Republicans getting what they want. I don't mind arguing conservatism. I don't mind arguing their point of view if they legitimately believe it and the like, but I have nothing invested in making that situation easier for them, making their argument better or helping them down the field with it. That's their fucking responsibility. However, I can recognize that I'm not able to even argue with those folks because the maggot crowd is eating up so much airtime and sucking all the air out of the room in terms of, is denying any normal conservative thought, I suppose, oxygen in those situations. And the far left in this country are, do the exact same thing to the regular operations of democracy. If we can't have everything, nobody gets anything. And that is it. That not only is it egomaniacal,
because it doesn't work the way I want it to work, it means it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. And it all has to be destroyed. It has to, and you hear this, that's where you start seeing the fallback on people talking about the system has to come down. All the system has to, the system has to go. The whole system, that's the Russell Brand angle on things, is that the system. No replacement for it, and never mind the fact that he lives on top of that system like it's a pile of skulls while he's eating pudding. Never mind that fact. Never mind the millionaires living in the Hollywood Hills decrying capitalism on the regular. That kind of idea, which is hilarious in and of itself. And maybe it's their own level of hypocrisy that creates this rage and disconnect in themselves. But on the parallel, on the far reaches of these groups, these political extremes, the most consistent thing is it's an all or nothing mentality. And there is simply no way.
Santa doesn't exist? Well, fuck all the presents.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. If Santa's not real, then nobody deserves gifts on the holidays because it's all a giant farce. It's not a way for you to show love to your relatives. It's not a way to give kids something innocent to look forward to. It's none of that stuff. It's such a lie that it has to be burned down. People need to be, and that in and of itself.
Fuck those reindeer. Let's get them.
Yeah, that's right. Is just. Like, it's just a lazy way of life. And quite frankly, it's the lazy side of nihilism. Because ultimately, it requires no activity. If the whole system is fucked, why bother? They can all just decry it without actually.
I'm just going to sit on the sideline. I'm going to sit on the sideline, and I'm going to chuck firebombs and gripe.
Exactly right, because nobody's going to check your work because there is none.
No. And
if they do, you can decry them as, how dare you check my work? You must not care about the issue as much as I do. You'll appeal to their emotions or their belief instead of saying, no, I actually want to solve the problem. So therefore, we got to kick the tires on this fucking solution you are putting forward. And you want that to happen. You want to kick the tires on situations like this. And in a situation like Russia, modern Russia right now, and modern China, and I would argue the Saudi Arabia as well as these primary power points, you are not allowed to kick the tires because the fucking thing will collapse and people will recognize it's not a real vehicle at all. Those aren't real wheels. The whole thing's a balloon and it's full of hot air. And they can't allow it. It can't stand up to scrutiny. And we scrutinize so much that people think, well, that's so much trouble. It's so much, I don't know, it's a lot of noise or whatever. Like, well, you should be happy about that noise to some degree because you're allowed to make it.
Democracies are messy, but that's better than what the alternative is.
Absolutely. And much love to you, Phil. Glad you could be with us today. I will see you Saturday on the radio show.
You will
stay
indeed.
Safe. Yeah, stay safe. And we'll talk soon.
To the best of my ability.
Yep. And then we have to schedule our Zoom call. So I sent you a message.
So
hopefully we can do it today or tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah. We're already 9:30 over here, so we're well into the evening.
Yeah, so tomorrow morning to you. Right. Yeah.
Could do that something too, like that. Or, very, earlier.
Yeah.
Well, you DM me. We'll work it out.
Okay, we'll work it out.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll stick around. More vlogs are coming. Hope you enjoyed the last one. I liked making it, the May 9th stuff. I think there was a lot of stuff there that it's worth learning and knowing. I've got a couple of things coming up, and then some other things I can't talk about right now, but lots of things. So lots again coming on.
Yeah.
So
we'll keep you. We'll make sure everybody keeps posted. Be safe, and I will talk to you soon, and then we'll see you Saturday.
And spread it, retweet it, and spread the news.
Pick
all
a
right,
vlog.
Hal, always
a
pleasure.
Okay.
We'll be in touch.
All right, cheers.
All right, drop me a line. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye. And thanks to you guys as well. Don't forget, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up. Patreon.com/HalSparks, Twitch.tv/HalSparks if you're going to subscribe there if you have Amazon Prime, and it won't cost you a dime. For your first subscription, obviously, if you subscribe to other people, you get that's how they get you. The first one, you get one a month for free, and that if you throw it my way, that's helpful. Whatever. But you can also throw it to Johnny Million, and then I don't know, get one of your own and gift it, whatever. We're all a rising tide lifts all boats is what I'm shooting for here. And anyways, any support is helpful. We've got the PayPal tip jar. If you use PayPal regularly, you can use that to send me a coffee or something. And then same thing with Venmo and Cash App, which rotates through there on the regular. If you watch the show, I will see you guys this afternoon. I'm going to go into a short but intense coma between now and showtime. So if I wake up and news has happened that I'm unaware of, we will just discover it together, if that's okay with you guys. Because I'm sort of, I have to say, I'm sort of shocked that I'm standing. Because, goddamn, that was, I left the whiskey last night at 1 o'clock, 1:20 in the morning, and got on the road a 4-hour drive to Vegas. I had to stop a couple of times to nap because middle of the night. And rolled in this morning at about, I think it was 7. So I collapsed till about 8:30, rolled out of bed, got my girl a cup of coffee, as I do, because that's love. And then I ran down here to be with you lovely folks. And I will always do my best to make sure that happens. So yes, I will see you guys later. Wish me luck at trying to get to sleep. That's always the hard thing. The whiskey a go-go, not just whiskey as a beverage, for those of you that don't know. Anyways, yeah, it's a good idea, Rational Geographic. All right, I will see you guys later. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And I'm not even going to end with the joke today. Well, I could.
Jella, boom.
Boom, yeah. I understand boom.
Bada boom.
Big. Yeah, big bada boom.
Big. Bada big boom. Big.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, big bada boom.
Bada boom.
Big boom. Big bada boom.
Boom River.
Oh, yeah, that's normal.
Like this, I'd probably feel 100%.
Boom River.
Thank you, Doc. Ever serve time?
Again, the words are conditions.
Legal, here I am like an idiot. They don't like the gas. Action replays in magnified fortune. We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges. The numbers should skyrocket downward. When they gaze upon Yosemites, here I am like an idiot.